let me give you a quick tour of these, just because so we know what we're talking about. Okay, so let's start with liberty, which is the value of the I of the individual. Okay, when we are thinking of life as an individual, what's good for me as an individual, and only that is when we bring the value of liberty to life. Now, what does a liberty-centered vision of education look like? Well, it basically says that education is a commodity consumed by individuals. Okay? So individuals should make their own choices about what education that should be available to them. And essentially, that we ought to be able to pick and choose education that meets our individual interests. And if that was the only value we were concerned with, we might say that that's what education should look like. But there are three other values of the larger public good to contend with, and they present their own visions. So if you want an example of how do we apply liberty to public schools in contemporary America, if it hasn't hit your communities, just give it a year or two and you'll see it. It's modeled on what California did with the parent trigger law, which basically says that when parents have children attending schools, in their particular case that don't meet AYP for 3 consecutive years, essentially 51% of the parents can come together and decide to charter out their school and turn it over to a private regulator. Now that is individualizing education and making education a matter of individual choice. It begs the question of whether there's anything about the commonality of education that we should be concerned with. But we'll get to that. So expect to see legislatures in other states, because they model each other, expect to see laws like that sweeping through legislatures. We already have opportunities to convert existing public schools, not just to make charter schools up new. We already have provisions in many states to convert existing schools to charter schools, and the next stage you're going to see is a sweeping of parent trigger laws. Equality is when individuals come together to represent interests as a group. Sometimes we can't address our individual interests, and we have to get with other individuals and form a group. So equality becomes the value of the group when we need to address issues as a group. So an equality-centered vision of it, just one example, okay, of how we promote that value. A state legislature recently debated a bill that would require social science texts to include a study of the role and contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans to the economic, political, and social development of the state. That is a push to level the playing field, to treat other groups comparably, to provide equity and equality. Some people like that particular equality and some people don't, but that's why we did it, because of that value. Community. If liberty is the value of the I of the individual, community is the value of the we. When we come together around a collective purpose, then we invoke the value of community, not the value of the individual. Those are all issues that invoke the value of community when we have to define the boundaries of we. What's the collective good that we're after? We may not pay as much attention to individual choice and liberties, but we're trying to decide what is the we, the common good that we're after. Now, an example of promoting community value in public school children, one of many and millions. Legislators propose a bill, at least in this state, sorry about that, that would require teens 18 and younger to take driver education classes before they get their permits. I'm sorry, I can get that. The key word is what? What's the key word? Required. What happened to liberty? It's not there. In this case, what are we saying? We're saying, or a group of our legislators are saying, in this case, community trumps liberty, right? Safety trumps liberty. For this particular group in this context, liberty is not on the table. We're going to supersede it with a different choice. There's a common good at stake which supersedes the individual choice in life. Now, we don't make that choice all the time, but we make it sometimes. So when should we make that choice? When do we not make the choice? And we come to prosperity. If liberty is the value of the I, and equality is the value of groups, and community is the value of we, prosperity is the value of the market. It involves questions of what should be for sale in our society, what should be commercialized or not, to what degree should we treat things in terms of their economic value only, To what degree should we look for a return on investment only as the reason for undertaking an activity? And to what degree should we make decisions based on market criteria and principles? For example, human organs or vaccines. Who should get them? Under what rules should we use? Those issues come up all the time. So for example, legislators in one state propose a bill that would put teachers who score the lowest on performance evaluations first in line for layoffs. Now that's using a set of market-based principles to make that choice. Those teachers might, for example, be very good emotionally and developmentally with your children. They might be very nurturing and helping to raise children, but that's not what we're measuring in a performance evaluation. And so therefore, if we use market-based principles, we have to define what we're going to measure and what matters. So those are different ways of deciding how we're going to do it. But they reflect our unique national heritage. They're part of what you saw in this room, and they're part of every set of decision-making that we do. But they comprise, because public schools are public schools cannot help but be engaged with issues that involve liberty, community, equality, and prosperity, both in the classroom and out, or else they wouldn't be public. And they frame our visions. Each of those values gives us competing visions in America. In general terms, visions about to what degree schools should be liberty-oriented and individualized, to what degrees they should be consumerized and market-based, so that you can shop for schools like fruit and vegetables in a supermarket, to what degree we should focus on the whole child and build a sense of connection and belonging, and to what degree we should be concerned with issues of equality, and where equality stops and starts, and whether or not the playing field is level. Those competing forces drive our visions about public schools. And the degree to which we keep them public or not depends on our ability to weave those visions together.